The topics that I'll be covering today is the already existing brand identity for United Habitat. Then I'll be touching on important notes to keep in mind when designing for the app, as well as just emphasizing that the app's focus is the youth and that we should keep this in mind. And then lastly, I'll be walking you through 3 possible mood boards for the app. So next up, as you can see, this is the already existing brand identity for you in Habitat, which we'll be basing the app off of. So for the primary colors, we'll stick with that for the fonts, the teal, blue, white, and black. Those colors are great, and we'll stick with that. Regarding the secondary colors, we'll be taking some of those secondary colors for possible illustrations, icons, and different assets that will be in the app. Regarding the typography, this is the typography that you in Habitat uses in their brand identity. They have 2 fonts. The main font is Roboto, and then their secondary typeface is Calibri, and we'll be using the same regarding our app. Then some important notes to keep in mind when designing the app is that we are designing for the 4 major stakeholders, and when doing so, we need to realize that the interface that each different stakeholder will engage with will have important key differences. An example of this is the interface that the youth they'll engage with will have a lot less information and therefore would need to be a lot simpler as they are entering data. Whereas the interface that, for example, United Habitat will have access to and engage with, and the back end will have a lot more information and data which they need to have access and be able to download the reports, etc. So regarding that, it's very important to keep that in mind and also come up with a solution to have all this mass amounts of data be presented in a clear and concise manner. Then, above all, the youth is the main focus of the app, and because the youth is our main focus, the app needs to reflect that by being current, colorful, and simple. The app shouldn't be overcomplicated, and the app should also be young and relevant, as that is our target market. So next up, I'll be walking you through 3 possible different mood boards. So mood board 1, as you can see, we have our primary colors, and then for the secondary colors, they are very, very bright, which I quite enjoy, and they will stand out. I also think the clear, fat, bold icons is very, very important, as you know what to expect. They won't be missed. They're bright. They're just there. So then for this mood board, I was thinking illustrations would be nice to give an indication of where you're at in your onboarding. Illustrations regarding maybe like someone near a water source, etc. I think it would be nice to give context with illustrations to kind of tell a narrative story, and we can definitely play a lot with that. Points that stand out with this design style is the buttons are really big. There's a lot of like curves in the lines. It looks very youthful. I think I really enjoy this style. I think it's very it speaks to the youth. So these are kind of web apps, and then here's a website that kind of speaks to the same style. I think it's very, very current and youthful, as I said. Then for mood board number 2, I stuck with the same icons because I think they work. And then for the secondary colors, they changed with the green and the yellow and the orange. These colors are also really bright and contrasting, and I think they would be implemented nicely in a very flat vector look and feel. So you can keep things very simple with just flat vectors, also rounded shapes, bold. There's no frivolous things to draw away your attention. My concerns, however, with this style is because there's no illustrations or assets to give context, it might come across as a little bit boring, and we also need to take in mind the context in which this app will be used. And I think maybe there would be situations where people aren't that good at reading. So having illustrations, such as in the previous design and the design style coming up, would be good to provide that context. Now, for the last mood board, the secondary colors are more muted, but they could also stand out and give a nice contrast and be clear. So for this style, which is very, very popular and current at the moment, and also it really resonates nicely with the youth, is to incorporate flat vector designs with 3D elements and 3D illustrations to provide context. So instead of it being flat vector illustrations, it's 3D illustrations, which is quite really cool. You can have relevant 3D icons and illustrations just to provide that context that I was speaking of earlier, which is really nice. And then for the web design, also having those 3D elements to provide that consistency throughout the website and the app, which will be really nice. Thank you so much for having a look and listening to my presentation. I think next up is important to decide, what design style we're going to go into. Is it going to be flat vectors with just icons and no illustrations? Would it be just illustrations, or would we delve into the 3D space? Yeah, I think this is a very, very exciting app. There's a lot of potential, and once we've decided in the design style direction that we want to go into, we can explore that design style a lot more and unpack that a lot more in our next presentation. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback.